Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Pancetta-Wrapped Leek Gratin. That's right, I think this beautiful braised and glazed gratin is so delicious that if you try this, you will never take another leek again. For granted. Alright? And while you may have used leek as an ingredient in recipes, you may have never had it when it's actually the star of the dish. And here that's certainly the case. So let's get started by prepping our leeks. I have 3 fairly large specimens, and we're pretty much going to use it all except for those really dark green parts. And one tip here before we start cutting, double check the size of the baking dish you're going to use. Ideally, you're going to prep these so they fit across lengthwise perfectly. So we'll start by cutting off a little bit of that root end, and then we'll move up the leek and we'll cut it right about where those dark green leaves start. But again, keep in mind the size of your dish. If you need to cheat 1/4 inch either way to make it fit better, go ahead. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut this lengthwise right down the middle into 2 hopefully equal halves. And then once you've done that, there's going to be a 95 to 99% chance that there's mud inside these. All right, I don't think I've ever cut a leek that didn't have a little bit of dirt or sand in it. The good news is, though, it washes out really easily. So I'm actually going to clean these twice. First, we'll give them a nice dunk in a bowl of water, and most of that sand and silt will go down to the bottom. And then after I do that, I also like to rinse them thoroughly. And definitely don't be afraid to separate the layers, get inside there really good. You can always put it back together. It's not going to matter. These are going to get wrapped. All right, so dirty leeks is one of the only ways to screw up this recipe, so give them a very thorough washing. And then once those leeks are sand, we're going to go ahead and wrap them in this pancetta, which some people call Italian bacon, because it kind of looks like that. But it's not smoked, so it really doesn't taste much like bacon. But regardless, we're going to take each of those leek halves and wrap them in the pancetta. So just wrap it around. I would say that's about the minimum you want to use. Of course you can put more. Do it how you want. You are the Milli Vanilli of your lily. So anyway, you're going to go ahead and wrap those leeks. And then once those are prepped, they're ready for the baking dish, which also needs to get prepped. And to do that, I'm going to drizzle in some extra virgin olive oil. And we'll brush that all over and a little bit on the sides. And then we're also going to season this up. You've heard me say it before. Under-seasoned vegetables are the devil's playground. So we're going to generously season this with some freshly ground black pepper, some cayenne pepper, and of course a good amount of salt. And once we ace the base, it's time to place the leeks into the dish. And you're going to want to make sure you put the flat side down, okay? Cut side down, round side up. And no matter what size or shape dish you're using, you basically want one layer filling the dish with those leeks packed fairly tight together like you see here. And then once we have all our pancetta-wrapped leeks situated, we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of liquid for these to braise in, the first of which would be a little splash of chicken stock or chicken broth, and then a little splash of white wine, and you're going to want to use something nice. Whoops, what an unfortunate time to drop the screw cap to the bottle. But anyway, we're going to add a little splash of wine, obviously something really nice and expensive, and then we'll finish this phase off with a little sprinkling of salt on the top, and then that's going to get wrapped tightly in foil, and then that's pretty much ready for the oven, except I do like to put this on a little sheet pan first, and that's just in case, and I'm sure you're way ahead of me, in case we have any leaks, pun intended. And no, that did not deserve a rim shot. But anyway, we're going to wrap that in foil, we're going to place it on a sheet pan, and we're going to put that in the center of a 400-degree oven for about 45 minutes, or until the leeks are just barely tender. So let's go ahead and pull off that foil and take a look. And of course, you're just going to test them with a knife, give them the old poka-poka, and they should just be getting tender, which these are. And at that point, toss the foil, because it's time to finish these uncovered so we can glaze the top. It is a gratin after all. And to do that, we're going to drizzle over some heavy cream. All right, just splash it all over the top. By the way, I have made this with creme fraiche, and it is magnificent. Although the creme fraiche can separate a little bit, it does taste amazing. But anyway, we're going to add our heavy cream to the top, and then we're going to finish this with a very generous grating of Parmesan. Of course, we're using the crazy expensive Reggiano. But don't forget, a ½ ounce of the crazy expensive stuff I'm using actually has more flavor and a much better flavor than 2 or 3 ounces of that cheap fake crap. So if you think about it that way, not only is the quality better using the real stuff, it's actually more frugal in the long run. But anyway, once the top has been creamed and cheesed, we're going to pop those back in the 400-degree oven for about 15 or 20 minutes, or until the leeks are completely tender, and it looks like this. Oh yeah, now that is a gratin. And I know you want to eat this right now, but don't try it. This has to sit at least 10 minutes to be even close to cool enough to eat. Of course, while you're waiting, if you take a barely damp cloth or paper towel, all those brown splatter marks will wipe right off, which makes it a little nicer for the table. So I cleaned mine up a little bit, I let it cool about 10 minutes, and at that point we're ready to eat. And you're probably thinking, man, that looks like a great side dish. Well, not so fast, my presumptuous friend. Yes, this is an amazing side dish, but if you put a couple of those in a bowl and spoon over some of that amazing braising liquid and possibly add a piece of buttered bread and then some atypically sliced chives, you're going to have what can only be described as an amazing lunch. All right, I should know. I had this for lunch, and it was amazing. And as I dig in here, I got to remind you, be sure you serve this with a steak knife. Even though these leeks are very, very tender, that outer layer, the one with all the pancetta and cheese attached to it, is still going to be kind of fibrous, and a fork is just not going to cut it. You need a knife to be able to go through those fibers, so each bite is the perfect ratio of tender, sweet, juicy, tangy, flavorful leek, with a little bit of that caramelized goodness from the pancetta and the Parmesan. So anyway, you hear chefs say all the time, vegetables are best prepared simply, so the natural goodness can be enjoyed without being overpowered by a bunch of heavy ingredients. Well, to those people I say, did you see how this came out? So sure, I do like simply prepared vegetables, but every once in a while you gotta make something like this. So I really do hope you give it a try. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.